My name is Harry, and this year I had to change my team name. Last year I competed, if you can call it that, in 7048 as Team Hello Waterface. Oh, by the way, I'm a paddleboarder and I'm not an athlete. I was just outside smoking cigarettes. And I never did any sports growing up. I didn't do any physical activities besides maybe a little hacky sack, you know, in the school parking lot. That was my sport. So discovering paddling was a real lifestyle change for me in a lot of ways, both in the physical activity, but also I'd never been a waterman. I'd never gone sailing much, except for a little bit. Again, as a troubled youth, I got to go in a sailing program for kids in the Charles River in Boston. So rediscovering Seattle and the surrounding area by water as a paddler has been really an amazing experience. It's really invigorated my love for the region, and many times I thought of leaving Seattle, and now that I'm a waterman, I don't think I want to, at least not as much. Anyway, but this year I changed my team name, and I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to compete because about 2 months ago I was in a hospital in California donating my left kidney to an old friend of mine who I played hacky sack with in high school. And so I was team kidney donor, and as I said, I really wasn't sure I was going to recover in time. I didn't do any training whatsoever. Last year I trained, I did some long trips, I went to the gym, I hired a trainer. I hired a trainer. No one would ever believe me if it wasn't true. But this year, you know, I wasn't sure I'd be able to, and in fact I didn't even start getting out again on the water until the beginning of May. And I did our weekly races at the Ballard Elks. I did a couple 3-mile races. I did the Lake Sammamish Northwest Paddling Festival, which was like a 5 or 6 mile race. But I found during those trial runs, those short races, that I wasn't really in any extra pain. That I'd healed up enough to do it, and you know, they had cut into my core, you know, in 5 different places when I had the surgery, but I was healed up enough to do it. So that was really exciting. I had planned to just volunteer at the finish line like our friend Hodge here, because that's a really rewarding thing to do, to greet people and help them ashore and give them soup and stuff. And if I hadn't been able to compete, I would have done that. But I still wanted to volunteer, so I volunteered to do pre-race safety checks. And I'll be honest, you know why I volunteered to do pre-race safety checks? Because I wanted a different shirt. No, but also I really love talking.
We're only in this for the laundry.
Means I can go an extra day without having to do my laundry. He knows me very well. No, I also really love meeting the people and seeing the craft. Like I said, I'm a newbie to this whole world of being a water person. And so meeting the people, like meeting Jan ahead of time and meeting the Commodores ahead of time, who gave me a nice gift, was just great. And it's nice to help out in ways that are small ways, but it saves people a little extra stress at the start line, and it saves the other volunteers from having to run around as much in Tacoma. So that was really fun, and a way to sort of build up my own excitement, because I didn't get to train, but I got to sort of catch the energy of other people who were excited about the race, which is great. But anyway, so on to the experience. My whole plan was, because I'm not as strong as I was last year, and I'm not a very ambitious or competitive person really by nature, to take my time and just enjoy the trip. And you know, and I told all my family members and friends who were quite concerned that if I felt any unusual discomfort, that I would just quit. It's easy to quit in this race because it's so well supported. Someone might come get you in a boat, or you can hang out in a ferry town until someone can drive around and get you, or whatever. There's many soft exits to this race, and it's so well supported that almost anyone could do it. Some of the people I met last year, a couple of young girls who had really never kayaked before. Their dad bought them a kayak for the race. Hi, Audrey and Sarah. They were able to finish last year, and so it's actually something that I wouldn't say anyone could do, but it's easier than you might think, because you're so well supported and you have 48 hours to get there. I've been telling people for a long time, if you can't get there in 48 hours, you can't get there. It's enough time, you know. Even for someone like me who, you know, I was many hours of this last trip, I was going about 2 miles an hour. so you know, on a stand-up paddleboard, you can go faster than that. Some of my racing friends can get up to 5 miles an hour on these shorter races that we do, or 6 even. Of course, Carl Kruger, I don't know, he goes 7 miles an hour or something.
The average is 30.
Yeah, it feels like that. But you know, I'm not even into that. I just like to go places and see stuff, and so that's what was appealing to me about doing the race the first time, was learning how to outfit my board for longer trips and overnight trips. You know, how do you lash enough stuff to the deck that you can camp and eat and everything? So that was a great learning experience. So this year I was content to be in the back of the pack, and in addition to that, I'm grieving for someone who passed away last week, and so I really wanted it to be peaceful. I didn't want to be stressed out and working hard. I wanted time to reflect and see the stars and see the animals, and that was part of why I made the decision when I finally reached Blake Island at like 3 in the morning to take a left and go the long way around Bainbridge. I took Rich Passage to Port Orchard.
I saw you on the tracker and I thought, who the hell is that? It's gonna be nuts!
There's one guy every year.
There was a guy last year, a Canadian racer, a Canadian sailor named David. Super Dave was his team last year, and Super Dave was great. Last year I was alongside Super Dave going up Colville's Passage, and he told me I'm going the other way. Because he is an experienced sailor and knew that the currents, he had timed it out to where the currents would be favorable both for Rich Passage and Agate Pass. And he hustled right along. I was ahead of him because I didn't go that way, and I paddled through the night. He rested for a while on the backside of Bainbridge. But I crashed hard last year south of Kingston on Jefferson Head, and he caught me up and went way past me. He finished well ahead of me last year. So I've been saying, I think I'll pull a Super Dave.
You didn't time it right.
No, I didn't. Well, and all along, because I'm not experienced at reading the water or even reading charts or figuring it out, I sort of just assess how I feel and where I am and what I can tell about the environment when I'm there. And I did do a little bit of research, and I knew that I wasn't going to be facing negative current at Agate Pass. That would be a real disaster. I knew I would get a push through Agate, but I did have negative current at Rich Passage. So I was facing at least a 1 mile an hour deficit going through there. Plus I was tired. Oh, by the way, just to backtrack in geography, I did stop at Blake Island to have a look around, and it's a shit show. And it was a shit show last year too. It's where people go when they're too tired to continue, when their boat's broken down, when they're suffering from hypothermia, when their back hurts. I mean, it is where I call it the island of lost souls. It's not really a good place to stop. I mean, if you need a bathroom, if you need a hot shower or something, or you got to stop or change your clothes because you might put on nighttime clothes there. But don't camp there. Don't hang out there. Rob mentioned the bobbing headlights and the panicked kind of action on the beach. It sucks. It's not a place to stay. It's a beautiful island. You can go there and use the Cascadia Marine Trail sites on the west side when it's not a race, but it's a terrible stop for this race. Anyways, I was really glad I took the long way, because as soon as I turned right north again near Illahee or Elahi State Park, Illahee, thank you locals, into I guess that's Port Orchard area, I saw a gray whale surface and spout, and it was about 6 a.m. at that point, so it took me 3 hours nearly to get from Blake to Illahee. It's pretty slow, guys. That's a long time to go 6 miles, right? But I saw that whale, and I was like, I came the right way. I wanted to be in nature. I wanted to be alone. I had to dodge a ferry going around Rich Passage, but after that, until I got to the north end of Bainbridge Island, I saw no boats. I saw no humans except for one guy come out of his porch on Bainbridge, way up on the hill. I could see a guy step out his door, and it was really peaceful, and it was slow. There were some doldrum waters there and some negative current, pretty much all the way to Agate Pass, but I loved it. And I had some fog, but because I was in a narrow, I like channels and rivers a lot, where you can see both sides and you know which way to go. You're going down a tunnel, kind of, and so it was really beautiful. And I saw sea lions that were chasing me, and all kinds of shorebirds, and just no people. And I had a lot to think about, as I mentioned earlier. and I sang songs to myself. I kind of pretended I believed in the afterlife and talked to my departed friend, and I had a really peaceful time. And I needed to make it to through Agate Pass before the tide reversed, so I did keep going, but not at a particular clip. And I planned all along to sleep when it was daylight, when it would be warm. And when I got around to Port Madison, I sort of beached at Indianola and pulled out my little inflatable mat, and I slept in the sun for almost a couple hours. I was there at least a couple hours, but it takes time to unstrap everything from the board and pull everything out of the bags and reorganize it and get ready to sleep. And I woke up and I strapped everything back on and pressed on, and I stopped a total of 6 times, I think, on land, and twice, most times for 10 or 15 minutes. That was the first long stop, and then the next long stop was, well, I stopped briefly when the north wind kicked in at Rose Point, just south of Point No Point, because the wind really picked up, and I started to do some social media stuff and eat and smoke and everything like I like to do in my breaks. And along comes Rowboat Ralph, as I like to call him, and Ian, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? We're going to catch dinner at Hansville." And I was like, "Well, that was my plan too. I better step it up." And the wind had died down considerably by the time they came by, so we met up again at Hansville, and I watched them attempt to beach the Starlight, the lovely, beautiful Starlight, which everyone loves, and had a great meal, and killed a couple hours, and those guys were bedding down, and so were some nice kayakers, really funny, actually, nice group of kayakers who were separate teams, but they were traveling together. Excuse me. Smoke. Anyways, I decided I was going to make the crossing at night. I didn't want to sleep. I really don't like sleeping at night in a bivy sack when it's cold. I really didn't want to have to do that. So I'm like, I can make it across. It's pretty calm right now. There's no wind, right now. And I knew the tide. Again, I don't read the charts. It's like, I just want to go. So, it was flooding, and it was flooding in ways that I don't understand, because I don't read the water. I mean, I know it's coming in, but when it hits Foulweather Bluff, it comes back out. So I'm trying to aim for the bluff, but I'm going further and further north, out, as I'm paddling, I'm pointing my nose at the bluff, and I'm paddling the right way, but the board is going out towards that channel marker, that bell. So I'm like, all right, well, whatever. And then you can see the light of the cut, the Port Townsend cut. There's a red marker there, which I only would know that because I did it last year. In fact, I would never, case in point, I would never have been brave enough to attempt this post-surgery if I hadn't done it last year. And I would not have finished the way I finished last year if I didn't have a buddy, because I was delirious and hallucinating. But my friend Dan Strauss and I met also at Hansville, and he said, let's eat, and if you think you can make it, let's finish together. We'll stick by each other and make it safely that way. But Dan couldn't do it this year because he's running for city council, and we hope he is a success. And so I knew I wouldn't have a buddy, and I was going to do this crossing alone, but the experience I had last year made me confident that I could attempt it. Nevertheless, I worked really hard to get all the way across the mouth of the canal in Admiralty Inlet, aiming towards Marrowstone Island. And I could see the lights of the support boat, the Endeavor. They were anchored just to the south of Marrowstone Island. Again, this is Saturday night. Most of you had already finished. A long time. Some of you a long time sooner. And I was trying to get, to that island. There's also a Cascadia Marine Trail campsite at the south end of Marrowstone Island, which I would have liked to have made it to. But I was just getting pushed and pushed and pushed backwards from the current flowing through the cut, pushed to the south from the flood coming from the north, and I was struggling. And but I had made it all the way across. I could see Port Ludlow and Matt's to my left, and I could see Marrowstone ahead of me. It said, I'm tired of fighting. I got to just, it's pushing me south. Just go south. Go to the closest land and take a break. And I got to, I guess it would be, I don't know if it has a name, O'Leary Point maybe, around there, a little west of O'Leary Point, and I beached on somebody's private beach. There was a nice house set way back, and big. As a paddleboarder, I always look, as Rob described, for like a kind of driftwood box. So I can get the board up out of the sand with the fin hanging down and not in the dirt or in the sand. And I found a good spot for that near our house, and turned on my phone, which I had kept off for conserving the battery, and to a text message from the race marshal saying, he didn't say we're worried about you, but I felt like that's why he texted me personally and didn't call me on the radio. Hey, we're on the boat at Marrowstone Island. Doors are open if you need anything. And I just texted back, I'm okay. I'm going to not fight this negative current. I'm going to rest here and press on in a couple hours. I don't know when he got the message, but about 4 hours later, I got a text message back that said, sounds good. Thanks, Andrew. So I sat down on this log and was like, well, I just need to wait. I also when I turned on my phone, I checked my Facebook, and Super Dave was tracking me. He said, it's so cool that you went the long way around, and I can't sleep. I'm staying awake watching you. He says, you're sending it. You made the crossing at night by yourself against negative current. But that's a bad idea. You should wait.
Yeah.
If you wait 2 hours, it's in your favor, and you got this. And I was so grateful for Super Dave, paying attention to me. So I'm falling asleep sitting up on this log. And I'm in my wet booties and wet neoprene pants. And I know if I fall asleep like this, I'm done for. So, but I didn't want to have to do this whole unstrap on everything to get to the sweater and the wool socks and the bivy sack and the camping pad and the silk sleeping bag liner. I mean, that's a lot of work just to lie down for an hour, And I was mad, but I brought all that stuff for a reason, and this was the reason. I couldn't continue, and I was cold and wet, and I had to wait for 2 hours. That's why you bring that stuff. I never touched that stuff last year, and I needed it, and it's like, so I asked myself, you just paddled like 60 miles, and you're too lazy to dig out the sleeping bag? Come on, man. So I did. I changed, and I got in the bivy sack, and I racked out on the sand. I didn't do the air mattress, which I should have, because that would get me a little warmer. But anyways, I woke up after about 2 hours at 3 a.m. Not even 2 hours, an hour and 15 minutes later, after settling down and reading all my messages and stuff. At 3 a.m. I got up, and that was actually when the text message came in from Andrew. He said, sounds good. And I had to put everything back, and everything's sandy and gross now, and stuff everything back in the strap to the board, and put the cold booties back on. But positive current, man, makes you feel really good when you get out there. I'm like, I'm moving, it's great. And it was really a beautiful morning. I got to the bridge in under an hour and sailed right through it with positive current. But then I got this cramp in my foot. You know when your foot's cold and you get a cramp and it feels like there's a rock in your shoe right under the ball of your big toe? That's what it felt like. I was stuck on a rock. I'm like, what's in my boot? When I put it back onto the beach, was there a clamshell in there? That's what it feels like. And I'm a paddle boarder now, some considerable experience. I know better. I picked up my right foot, thinking, there's a rock in my shoe, and I lifted my foot and fell over.
Oh man! Wow.
Right on the inside, So I made it all this way under some tough conditions, and anyway, I fell in. But I was invigorated. Now it's cold. I only got 6 miles to go. The sun's coming up. Everything's fine, and it actually worked. It cleared both the nap at Matt's Mats or Lily Point and the falling in. Kind of woke up some of the tiredness of my muscles and my shoulders and stuff. So I really felt great finishing. And last year when I finished with Dan, we were like two cartoon characters, so delirious and silly and barely paddling and making each other laugh. And when we finished, it was this whole like, oh, I couldn't possibly ring the bell before you. Oh, no, I insist, you ring the bell. But you are far greater than I, you should ring the bell. And we played this game for like 5 minutes, we were like, come on, guys, ring the bell. And we were both quite out of it when we got there. But this year I felt, really good. And I only slept for a total of maybe 3 hours and 2 naps. And it's not just the length of the race, because it starts at 7 p.m. This year it started at 7 p.m. I had been up since 7 a.m. So at 34 hours into when it was about when I fell in, I had been actually up for, I'd been active for 46 hours with a 3-hour nap. That's a lot. So, but I felt fine, I felt cogent, which I didn't feel the first year. I was in control of my senses and my speech and everything. And as I pulled up to the dock, the sun came through. The fog hadn't yet descended. I could see the sunlight on the mountains. Like, I got a glorious dawn arrival, which you guys didn't get. You got the foggy arrival. So when I was crossing over, attempting to cross over, I was like, I should be back there at Hansville camping with my friends, Ralph and Ian. I love those guys. They're resting. I didn't know they had got up, 2 hours later and had to rescue their boat. And I was like, I should have stayed with them, but I'm glad I didn't, because I finished well ahead of them. Not that for competitive reasons, but because, I finished at a good time for me. It was sunny and warm, and there were people there to greet me, and I got to be there to welcome them when they got there and shake their hands and take their picture and everything. So I was really glad to be there for one of my friends around. I beat one of my friends. Anyway, so I'm really proud to have accomplished 7048 for the second time, and with really a very come-as-you-are strategy of no training, no special preparations, just knowing the confidence that I could do it, and that I was well supported by the volunteers, by the organizers, and by my friends and the fellow racers. And the fellowship of this event is unique in the kinds of activities I pursue. I go to a lot of concerts, I have fellowships with people in different hobbies, but the fellowship of athletes and water people is a different thing that I hadn't really experienced much in my life. And it means a lot to me to be a part of it. It means a lot to me to be here with and for the rest of you, and I thank you very much.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah.